From a little cover, I got my dreams in sight. Wrestling on the mat, I go and put up a fight. With every hold and slam, I rise to the peak. Now as Professor Bear, it's my strength that they see. Roaring with knowledge like a lion so proud. In this wrestling world, I'm standing out loud. I'm Professor Bear, got the passion to spare. Wrestling's my life, with the power to share. From the roots to ropes, in the spotlight we gleam. Chasing victory dreams, living out the theme. Now my WOSN, my squad.
Yeah. Hey, new beginnings on the cusp. Not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean soul.
With my forest crew, we'll always ride. In the wrestling world, one just claim the prize.
Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I am Professor Bear, and this is A Bear's Thought. And guys, girls, I know it's been a couple of days since you've seen this lovely, beautiful face, but you know, things happen, and that's the way it goes, unfortunately, sometimes. But we are back, and we are still on our Promotions Appreciation Month. And today, guys and girls, I have Net Pro Wrestling Zone Danny. Danny, how are you doing today, sir?
How's it going, sir? I hate to correct you right out of the gate, sir, but it is Neo Pro. I don't know if I heard that correct.
I'm sorry. Like I tell everybody who watches my show, I'm old. I make mistakes. So
Oh, that's not a problem, man. It's early morning. I'm recovering from a cold myself, so
apologies. So one of the things that before we get deep into diving into it, I want to point out the logo. Now,
Mhm.
guys and girls, when we talk to a certain promotion, we definitely want to put their logo up so you know exactly who you are researching. Because unfortunately, in wrestling, there's a lot of similar names and identical names. So we want to make sure you're focused on the right promotion when you go look them up. And if you don't want to put in the work, Professor Bear always tries to make it easier for you. If you scan the QR code, it will take you to Neo Pro's YouTube page. Excuse me. It's still early and I hadn't had anything to drink. My voice is going to go up and down. Apologies for that. But now, since we've let you know where you can go, let's start giving you the history of the company. But first, Danny, the question I always love to ask my guests first off is, how did you become a wrestling fan?
Ooh, that's it's one of the oldest mediums and forms of entertainment that I remember just having an effect on my life. I grew up in New York City in the 90s, so WWF at the time was huge. My parents were wrestling fans, my grandparents were wrestling fans. There's multi-generational household of wrestling fans. So I mean, the very first confirmed memory I have was watching Warrior and Rude in the cage. Um, and I must have been 2 or 3 years old. So that's the very first memory I can come up with. Um, and I mean, it's always been a part of my life. I call it my first love. I love music. I loved, skateboarding as a kid. I loved all the fun stuff that a kid in the '90s would love. But wrestling has always kind of been a part of who I am and my identity.
That's cool to know. Um, so how did you go from just being a wrestling fan to getting into the business?
Um, Funny enough, I there's it's a dual part story. I once ran into James Mitchell, the Sinister Minister, in Florida. I saw him with a TNA wrestling shirt on when he was working for them at the time, and I was curious. I mean, growing up in New York, I ran into folks all the time in the streets of Manhattan. Once ran into Vader on the street, for instance. But I was old enough to ask Mr. Mitchell about how to get into business, and he didn't really give me an answer. He was very old school, very, you got to know somebody to know somebody. Um,
Right.
and I met somebody, and that somebody is actually my business partner, Jason. I through friends of friends and girlfriends and so on and so forth. I ran into him and found out that he had been training to be a wrestler, and I wanted in. I never pursued it because I thought it was impossible, and there was the opportunity.
That's kind of cool.
Mm.
So when you met your business partner
Mhm.
and you wanted in, how did where did you start as far as getting your foot in?
So geographically, it was in the Canton, Ohio area, which is where we're from. Neo Pro Wrestling is based out of Canton, Ohio. Canton famous for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Um, we trained at the MCW Stomping Grounds, Main Event Championship Wrestling, the Stomping Grounds. Several folks have come through that training institution. It's no longer around, unfortunately. MCW itself as a promotion is also no longer around. But I was trained by Shasta was the promotion owner and ran the wrestling school. But at the time, he had Ethan Wright training us. So I'd like to say that I was trained to wrestle by Ethan Wright. I mean, he taught me so much about just the business of wrestling and what to do in a ring. And then a litany of other people had a hand in teaching me things. Jessica Havoc, Wilbur Whitlock, who is a mainstay of Neo Pro Wrestling now. So quite a number of people had a hand in me learning our industry.
Okay. So after getting, how long did you train before you finally made your debut?
It was about a year. Unfortunately, it was the last days of MCW as a promotion, so some things administratively kind of got in the way with training. It took longer than it probably should have, and I would have loved to have had a longer career in wrestling, but life unfortunately got in the way, and a handful of injuries. I had injured my neck in the ring and my leg and my knee, particularly outside of the ring at work. And I took a break, and that break just turned into years and years. And wrestling is a young man's game, unless you're in it as a young man and you can card on a 20 or 30-year career. So I think my time in the ring is done. But about a year it took to get me quote unquote ready, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Mm,
So after you had to step away from your in ring career,
mm.
how did you come back to owning your own promotion?
That's a fun one. Jason, my business partner, he and I had remained friends throughout the years. It had been about 6 or 7 years since I had touched the wrestling ring, and my my partner at the time, we were looking to purchase a home, and he had been running a pizza shop locally. And so I just kind of hit him up, asked for an old buddy favor. Hey, man, looking to make some extra bucks while we go to buy this house. You need a delivery driver or something. So I went and worked with him at the pizza shop. And just through the grapevine, a lot of things happened as time went on. The pandemic happened, for instance. And during that time, Shasta, our old mentor, he ended up passing away. And we wanted to do a tribute show for him, kind of one last hurrah for MCW as a brand. It was very much like getting the band back together, and I was asked to partake in a battle royal. And again, it had been years. I trained for 3 months, and I was still completely out of shape. I had no business being in that ring, but it was an honor to be asked as one of the last students of the Stomping Grounds to be a part of that. And from that show, a series of conversations happened between myself and Jason and a couple of people, Wilbur Whitlock being one of them. But what if we revitalize the brand? And then the idea came to start something completely new. And before I knew it was really just Jason and I with Wilbur kind of on the sidelines rooting us on. Like, hey guys, I still have a career. I don't want to be involved in any office stuff. You guys do what you want to do. But we saw an opportunity. And we felt that there was a need in our area for a specific brand of wrestling. And we felt it compelled to try and fill that need.
So, yeah, you all got the idea. Y'all starting to put it together. When did y'all officially put on your first card?
Oh man, it feels like it was forever ago. The date I believe was April 23rd of 2020. Oh my gosh, was it 22 or 23? Man, everything is such a blur. It was we called the Neo Pro Wrestling 1. We wanted to have a working relationship with our local fairgrounds. Wrestling and fairgrounds, historically has an attachment, a tie. You hear the Jim Cornettes of the world talking about fairgrounds down in Louisville. And I thought of the same thing, like that'd be a cool thing to have associated with our brand. So we've been at it for a good couple years now.
Okay. So if I ask, what is your company's style as far as how are y'all based? Are y'all an old school company, a new school company? If you can understand what I'm asking.
For sure. I think I understand what you're asking, because the ways in which wrestling is done these days is varied, right?
Right.
You have those who still follow the traditional pro wrestling ways of doing things, treating it more like a sport, more like a contest, if you will. And then you have those who are more on the sports entertainment side of things.
Yes.
Full acknowledgement of it being a form of entertainment. Very tongue in cheek about that. And you have your extremes of that. We keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the industry, not just here in the States, but across the world. And what we wanted to do was kind of create a hybrid, a fusion of a lot of different things. In our area, we have several promotions. There's quite a lot now. Within the last, since we've hit the map, I think 2 newer promotions had hit the scene with us here in the greater Northeast Ohio area, each with their own individual way of doing things. And for us, you have these 2 creative minds, and Jason and myself, that have 2 different ethoses on how to go about doing wrestling. So it's a fusion of a little bit of both. I make the joke that I'm the sports, he's the entertainment. He's very much into stories and how to tell compelling stories in the ring and out of the ring, how to showcase characters. These wrestlers are performers, they're athletes and performers. So we very much allow a lot of creative freedom Certainly, there's no creative control with the performers that eventually, lands on our shoulders. But very much like improv comedy, like go out there and you figure it out. Wrestling, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, I don't want to speak for Jason, but I think he shares the same opinion. Um, when it's done correctly, it's like jazz. You've got trained professionals, and I'm a musician by trade. I went to school for that. So, hey guys, we're in the key of G flat minor and one and go.
Right,
And,
right, gotcha.
and when wrestling is done correctly, in my opinion, you have that. You have this fusion of styles. You have people figuring it out in the ring. You have people figuring it out on the microphone. And so you've got a little bit of everything. We've got the Great Lakes title, which is that division is what would be traditionally known as like the more modern style of wrestling, more fast paced, higher flying, a little more technical in some ways. The women's championship and the Neo Pro Wrestling Championship, men's and women's titles are more of your big match, main event style matches that you'll find. The tag division is a mixed bag. We've got teams like Members Only and Cash Inc. that are what you would call smaller, lighter guys, but they hit hard and aggressively. Studio 86 are comical at times, but also very serious technical professionals. You can tell that in their movements. It's a mixed bag of things. We kind of point to our like creative linchpin is Heatwave 98. That was a point in wrestling history where you had your Eddies and Rays and Malenkos kind of mixing it up, giving you pure wrestling, and then you had Sandman and Dreamer and Raven. You had all these different types of styles that would come together and coalesce into one cohesive show. So that's really where we try and find a balance of things.
Now, you mentioned your heavyweight championship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you well, do you mind repeating the name of your championship?
For sure. I like the term heavyweight, but we actually don't assign it as a heavyweight title. We don't really have weight classes.
Right.
That was an early discussion in the early days of creating the brand. I would love to institute weight classes. I think that'd be a fun twist on pro wrestling as an art form and as a form of entertainment, by instituting a sports-like environment for weight classes. But we don't call it the Neo Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. It's just the Neo Pro Wrestling Championship. Excuse me. And the Neo Pro Wrestling Women's Championship. They are identical titles in form. In the women's title's a little smaller, but they look exactly the same. We see it as a men's and a women's division. We've had main events where the women also main event the show. Or we've had events where the women main event the show. So it's just the Neo Pro Wrestling Championship. Men's Neo Pro Wrestling Championship, women's Neo Pro Wrestling Championship.
The reason I asked that question, and I was glad that you brought it up for me to remember to ask the question, is because I am a big stickler on disliking when a company calls their championship a world title,
Mhm.
when you don't even leave your own county. So how can you call your championship a world? But again, I understand when you own something, you can call it whatever you want. But
That's true. That's true.
but I'm more of the old school flavor of wrestling, and if you do not leave your area, I don't like that reference. Even though we generally all know that, like you said, it is wrestling is more of an art form,
Mhm.
but and kayfabe is pretty dead, but I still like that the illusion
Mhm.
that it's not. So for me, it irks the world out of me when I hear it.
Birds of a feather flock together, right? Like I am very much in the same mindset. It can't be a world title unless it's defended outside of. I mean, if you don't even leave your state,
Exactly.
that's something. But that was actually a lesson I learned from a former champion. That she very much kind of reiterated that, and I hadn't considered that until she said it. Jessica Havoc, our former women's champion, one of our former women's champions. There was a time when she held our title and the AAA Women's Championship. And we'd made a joke about defending the Neo Pro title in Mexico. And she very tongue in cheekly said, well, if I do that, it becomes the Neo Pro Wrestling World Women's Championship. And I stopped and I thought about that. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Maybe don't do that. Let's make sure. let's like I'd be all for that. That'd be great. But that's like in a wrestling sense a political nightmare. I don't want to have to start having these conversations. But she made that point, and I'm like, if we, we're not too far from Canada up here in Ohio. If that happens, and we defend, the Great Lakes title, which Canada's attached to one of the Great Lakes, or we
Right.
defend the Neo Pro Wrestling Championship up north. Or, say something like that happens and another opportunity comes to defend it in Mexico or in a different country. We could lay claim to that, to any one of our titles at that point. But for now, we are concentrated in the Northeast Ohio area, and looking to expand. Hopefully, maybe if the opportunity is around to go around the Great Lakes region, I think that'd be fun. But no, we don't try and gas ourselves up like that.
So, another question: how do you feel about working with other promotions?
Mhm. In general, I love it. I think the business is the healthiest when promotions work together. I think that's very indicative. If you see the industry, how it operates at the top, you see what the WWE is doing, you see what All Elite Wrestling is doing, you see what New Japan is doing in reaching out to smaller promotions, if you want to call it that, and trading talent, trading ideas, trading creative minds and staff. I think it's good across the board. It keeps the creative juices flowing amongst the promotions, like those who are in charge of making decisions. I think it keeps the performers on their toes. I think it adds more accountability to the business overall. I think it gives more freedom to a wrestler to go work somewhere. There's nothing like, oh, this doesn't work for me here. I'm going to go ahead and go over there and see what they're offering. Now, as a promoter, that makes it, from a business perspective, you kind of don't want that, right? Like if
Right.
you have somebody who's working for you, you don't want them to go. But if they're not happy, it then makes you more accountable. How do I keep them? How do I, now we're talking business. How can we balance the scale and make it good for both the talent and the company? And of course, more importantly than anything, the fans. I think you have the opportunity to tell interesting stories. Like I said, we have a lot of promotions here in Northeast Ohio. When we were done at the stomping grounds, like I said, there were some administrative issues that were happening there. At the tail end of my training, I was sent to a different training school, Mega Championship Wrestling's training school, up in the Elyria area. It's closer to the Cleveland area. It was about an hour drive from where we were, hour and a half drive from where we were. And I went up there and trained and finished up my training there. So, I talked to Brandon Xavier all the time about how I'm not a Mega original per se, but I graduated from the school. So there's a tie there. Jason, before we started Neo Pro, he had a hand in creating the promotion that now exists out in the Youngstown area called Real Action Pro Wrestling. So we have our pedigree comes from other promotions. If you see the talent that we have, there's only a handful of what we would call homegrown Neo Pro talent. A lot of everybody else came from somewhere else. Trey Lamar, Jocelyn Navarro, Studio 86. Even guys like Patrick Hayes and Wilbur Whitlock, they've been around for a long time and kind of been everywhere. So, when you have an opportunity, say, to send Joshua Bishop, who is a free agent, to Mega Championship Wrestling and have him win their title, now you have an interesting place for some cross promotion. One of our guys has their title.
Um, with that being said, and you mentioned AEW and WWE. Um, would you have an issue with some of your talent working at their shows, um, getting exposure to how they run things?
Absolutely not. I would not have an issue. And in fact, I can give you a couple of examples where we've seen that. Our former champion Ashton Day, he's been on AEW Dark. He's worked at AEW a couple times. Josh Bishop, just mentioned, was recently on a TNA pay per view, tagged with Enzo and Zilla Fatu on their pay per view. Another notable example is a WWE ID prospect, Samuel Holloway. He was with Neo Pro pretty early on with Matthew Taylor, and we we don't have so much access to him anymore because of his obligations. But I couldn't be more proud of what him and Josh and guys like that are doing. We know where we sit in the industry. Again, we don't gas ourselves up enough to call our title a world title. So I can't at once say like restrict where someone wants to go or what they want to do. I wish I could, but I'm certainly not going to be able to compensate somebody for all of their life's expenses.
Right.
I've told my guys and girls, because there's oftentimes a stigma about working other places, whether it be on a smaller scale like the independents or working up that ladder. If somebody's not paying you enough to take care of all of your life's expenses, then don't let them tell you where you can and can't work. If you haven't signed a contract that dictates where you can and can't work, then don't do that. If people in this business don't want you to go, if they tell you you can't go somewhere, they're not interested in you and your interests and your needs and your goals as a performer, as an athlete, as an entertainer. Same thing with like people who leave our industry and go into Hollywood or go into other things. You should want to pursue more at all times and surround yourself with the kind of people that want to see you succeed.
That was a very insightful way of looking at things. And truthfully, I've never thought of it like that, to be honest. Um, I like that because for a couple of reasons. One, you're showing the people that you care m- more about them than your business itself, and that it gives people an opportunity to understand that, hey, I can grow, but it depends on me and my drive to do what I need to do,
Mm,
because mostly I've I've had conversations with different wrestlers and had made this comment that your business among yourself. If
mhm.
you don't promote yourself, who will? If you don't believe in yourself, who will? So you have to take those things serious and do social media, do podcasts, do things that's going to help get your name out there and build on your talents.
Mhm.
So again, that's a great way of looking at things. And truthfully, for a business owner to have that attitude is really different too.
Well, the way we've approached it, like our promotion started in the back of a pizza shop, man. Like we were employees. And anybody who's anybody has had a job where you may not feel like you're appreciated by the powers that be. And when you can look at a talent trying that's trying to figure it out, this business is hard. It's hard on the body, it's hard on the mind, it's hard on the soul. And when you see somebody who's trying to make it work, and you see them, they see you see the stars in their eyes, right? They know that it's possible, it's doable. They see their peers make it, They see that, they see. How often have you heard people who've been in the business, for 20 years say things like, man, I remember, wrestling Kevin Steen in an armory and blah, blah. Like you've had these interactions with people throughout time, and you want to push that. And, that, like I said, with us being a more open and creative space, I've always called it a creative collective, giving people the space to learn and to grow in that sense. We're providing people the tools to move forward. Sure, my job is to focus on NeoPro and making sure that we're the biggest thing that we can be, right? My job is to make sure that I'm promoting the brand, that I'm trying to execute as much brand awareness as possible, that I can continue to work with local businesses and local venues to try and bring people into the door, to try and get more eyes on our product and their product. That's my job, right? My job is to not go into the ring and perform. That's their job. So like you said, they're a business unto themselves. Whatever I can do to help them kind of shape and mold themselves to be as marketable as possible, I'll champion that to the moon and back. But if ultimately it does fall on them, which in turn is why I can't take anything away from anyone. If you put that work in, if you get out there, you get your name out there, you start climbing that ladder, start getting eyes on you, all of a sudden an MLW or a TNA or an AEW or WWE gets wind of what you're doing, and you're, hungry enough, and you've got a compelling enough character, and your work that sits right behind you is what defines you. You've earned that. Nobody should take that from you. No one.
Like I said, that is such a great message, and it's different hearing that coming from an owner when honestly the business has the history of owners wanting to keep people down, be to have control of every aspect of a business.
Mhm.
So that's definitely a different mentality and something that I like and appreciate, and I can imagine anyone that works for you appreciates also.
It's felt in the locker room. Some not all the promos happen in the ring. Sometimes they happen backstage, and they're directly to Jason and myself. So we've heard a few comments like that throughout the years, and it gives us energy. Like I said, we aimed to try and fill a void that we thought existed, not just geographically but ethically, in our industry. And I'm not, I don't want to down talk anyone and any of their business practices, but you start hearing things, telephone tell a wrestler, right? Like
Right.
things start going around the horn, and sure, you got to take a lot of stuff with a grain of salt. And I do, I'm not naive by any stretch of the imagination, nor am I jaded enough to be angry about stuff, but you hear things. And my experiences, although brief, I saw things too. And we have an event that we do every September called Set the Standard, and for us that's a shoot. Like, we aim to set the standard. If the standard that exists now doesn't work, we're going to change it. We're going to kick down the door, and we're going to try and change the mold as best as we can till the wheels fall off.
Love it.
Mm.
So how often do y'all run shows?
Right now we do shows once a month. About if we have opportunities outside of the once a month schedule, then we'll take them. But we try and do shows from February to November. One of the standards that we set is an off season. Neo Pro Wrestling has an off season every single year from Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day. For a few reasons. Number one, I don't know if you've ever moved the wrestling ring, but doing that in like 10-degree weather sucks. And not just for those in the show, but fans too. You don't want to be out there waiting for a door to open and it's 5 degrees outside. But also to just give the talent options, like, go, if somebody's doing a show in December or January, go work, go do what you have to do, but you're not going to be working in Neo Pro. We're going to be off. Have time with your family. Don't worry about what we're doing. Off season is nice.
So with that, was that a conscious decision that y'all were going to have the off season?
No, that came over time. We did an event in December in our first year, and we found We tried Dusty Rhodes in it and going, hey, Christmas, let's do a Christmas show. It was great. It was fun. Very family kind of like environment. Had a potluck in the back. It's kind of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that element of it was fun. But like I said, moving the ring in the cold and then trying to organize things with people's schedules around the holidays. Fans maybe not wanting to, I mean, let's be honest, man, maybe not want to spend the money because it's the holidays.
Right.
The not just Christmas, but every other holiday that exists around that time. A lot of money gets thrown around in a lot of places, and maybe a local wrestling show isn't one of them. And which is fine. I'm not gonna hold anyone to that. Like, go take care of your family, go take care of your loved ones. But it just over time we realized there's this time gap that we could work with. And this coming Saturday, we have our first event of the year, White Noise, on the 21st in Louisville, at the Eagles. We're very, very excited about that. It's the start of our next season. It kind of helps from a storytelling perspective. We have seasons. So we
Well,
are working on the third season of Neo Pro Wrestling.
so with that too,
Fourth season, excuse
of
me.
course, with me being a wrestling fan for over 40 plus years, um, I've heard different things and stuff. Do you feel like with also taking the season, do you feel like it helps the wrestlers as far as with their getting a chance to rest their body, to recharge, and give them a a fresh slate, so to say, with that?
I mean, I can only speak for us, and what we do. It's not too much of a time obligation. You're talking 10 to 12 dates out of 365 in a year. But for performers at the top, maybe doing it once a week, or 2 to 3 times a week. Excuse me. Establishing an off season, I think, would be it's a personal, like this as a fan and as somebody who's got a foot in the pool of the industry.
Right.
Trying to stay a little humble about that. Maybe an off season would be a good idea. But I don't know. For as long as I've been alive, I'm 38 years old. For as long as I've been alive, wrestling has been on every day in some form or fashion all year. And I don't know. Other major sports, specifically here in the States, right, with the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, MLS, NASCAR. There's other major sports, golf, there's an off season of some kind. And professional wrestling doesn't have that. And I think it's mostly because it's seen as entertainment. But even in that aspect, television shows have seasons. There are off seasons in that sense. So I don't know where it stands, but pro wrestling is very unique in that sense, is that it's a little bit of both.
So, and interesting enough, we've noticed that WWE has taken away a lot of their house shows, and they've scaled back that. And one of the things that someone had, I had a discussion with, and they were saying they think that's the reason why injuries have seemed like they've started going up more, because they don't have a chance for that rep with that consistency of ring awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what what is your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think there's something to the reps of that. I like I compared it to music earlier. If you're not if you're not jamming with other musicians, right, you're gonna kind of lose the chops after a while. Same thing with what we do nowadays. It's hard on the body, but if you're not constantly moving and you're not at the very least training, if you're not having matches, if you're not performing in front of people, there are things about what we do that's gonna kind of rust over. That's what we call it, ring rust. You can't leave it it's like an open porous piece of metal. You can't leave it out for the air. It will get rusty. You have to keep that that bearing oiled. Um, it's a double-edged sword though, right? Like you don't want it to be like the old days where you're running a 19 or 25 day loop. You got a day off, and then you barely see your family, and it's led to countless divorces and broken homes and jaded children and all kinds of stuff. So like as an industry, you don't want it to go back to that. There's an element of like it being a grind machine that's just not good. Um, but at the same time, you don't want it to be an environment where you have a lot of injury or you have a loss of skill. I like, for instance, it's going to sound a little critical. I love what All Elite Wrestling does in the fact that they have a minimal schedule in that sense. But I think the loss of the house show for them never really doing them, and for the WWE, for instance, at that level, kind of cutting that back, there's something to be said about it not being so present in the schedule and the correlation or even causation of like a degrading skill factor and higher risk of injury. I think there might need to be some more time to kind of study the statistics of that, but you can definitely see a lot of examples of that. Again, even at the top. There's something to it, right? Like I heard Undertaker say it recently that motion is lotion. And it's, like I said, I'm 38, man. Like sometimes it's hard. I'm not old, but I ain't no spring chicken, right? Like getting out of bed sometimes kind of hurts, like, oh, I need to move more. Maybe I need to hit the gym and maybe run around the block a few times, because you need to keep the body moving. And it's such a physical sport. It might be a show, but it's still a sport. You got to keep them wheels moving.
So, with that same thought process with cutting house shows, I think that is, I try to look at the positive of that, and I think that gives so many indie promotions a chance to rise up and bloom from the lack of WWE and AEW shows outside of their television shows, because a lot of people crave the wrestling and may not have ever taken the chance to look at their local indie. But now, since you can't get those shows, especially in certain markets, you're getting offset by great indie shows that are able to take the place. Would you agree with that?
I would, and that's part of the ethos with the off season, right? Like, and just having shows here and there. There are certain pockets of the country where you have several local promotions, and Northeast Ohio is one of them, where we're not all running on the same day. Sometimes somebody's got a show on Thursday, and then another one has one on Friday. We generally run our shows on Saturdays. There's another outfit that'll do it on Sundays. So if that's good for all parties involved, right? It's good for the promotions to have a little bit of competition amongst themselves, see who's performing well in what areas, see who's doing well from a ticket sales perspective, from a fan retention perspective, and it's good for the performers. Ultimately, we're all independent contractors, right? Wrestler's an independent contractor. It should be. Unfortunately, our business is a little different. But I would think on paper, it should be no different than a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter. You're an independent contractor. Your services are where you want them to be. And so, like I said, from Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day, you want to go work somewhere else, go work somewhere else, man. Go make your money. I'm not going to stop you. And if my advice to a young performer, somebody that I would call like an apprentice or a journeyman right out of wrestling school, is go get booked anywhere that you possibly can. Don't be loyal to any specific brand. Again, if nobody's really signing your contract and paying your house, can they really tell you where to go? They can't. Just go out there, get the reps in, find out and see if there are other promotions that are within a 200-mile drive that'll do, a Thursday show or a Wednesday show. Treat it like a job. Treat it like a job that you would every day. You got to go every day. You're at work 4 or 5 days a week. You should be wrestling 4 or 5 days a week. Get those reps in. And you will benefit from it. If you run once a week in a year, you've got 50 matches under your belt at the end of the year. But if you did it 4 times a week, you've got 200 matches under your belt.
Very
So,
true. And what made me giggle there like a little schoolgirl. But anyway, what made me laugh there is where the last 2 months I've been doing podcasts like a demon. I
mhm.
mean, where I can even set today as an example. I have 5 podcasts today.
Oh, wow.
And it's not necessarily for my benefit as far as, oh, I'm doing it to make my name bigger and stuff. It's more of to help promote what I love, which is wrestling,
Mhm.
and give promotions that may have not got the visibility in certain markets a chance to grow and to help make their audience bigger. And for me, as being a wrestling fan a lifetime, I'm 52 years old.
Mhm.
And I, like you, I can, one of the first things I can remember was a wrestling event
Mhm.
with my father. So wrestling is such a homegrown feel for me. But I never could get into the business. I didn't
Mhm.
know where to go. I didn't know how. Then when I started finding out, I had a family. So my family needed money. They didn't have time for me to chase my dreams that way.
Mhm.
I'm getting the opportunity now.
Mhm.
And it's like the thing that keeps going in my head is leave the business better than you found it.
Mhm.
And that's why I continuously try to get people on my show to talk, to let people know. Because again, in this simplest form, wrestling is storytelling and
Mhm.
it creates emotions with people. So I feel like if you get to talk and tell your story and stuff, maybe you can get people to start following you,
Mhm.
get emotionally invested in you so you can build and build, and that does nothing but help the industry and helps myself. So in the biggest thing is, yes, I want to continue to do, but I don't want to saturate the market where everybody's tired of, oh geez, here he goes again. Why do I want to watch? I can catch another one. I want to
Mhm.
make it special.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm doing appreciation months the last 2 months, because I want people to understand that I don't mind working with people. People don't mind working. We have different stories, different backgrounds.
Mhm.
Let's learn, because wrestling is so vast. It has so much that most people don't learn. They just get the surface level. If
Mhm.
you're a wrestling fan like us, I want you, oh man, I want to hear this, that I can go deep into it and learn how it came about and so
Mhm.
forth. So
Mhm.
with all that filibustering I did, the basic message is to help and to promote. I look
Mhm.
at myself as a small promoter,
Mhm.
not promoting me,
Mhm.
but promoting my guests and wrestling. And if I can do that and do it successfully, no matter what success I have, I've succeeded because wrestling continues to grow and keeps going on and will go on way after I'm dead and gone. My grandkid, my children, hopefully will love wrestling. And hey, great granddad did this for the business.
Mhm.
So
Well, yeah, you're doing your part. A lot of times wrestling podcasts and a lot of journalists often get a lot of flack for not having some type of expertise in the industry. That's just you're an outsider looking in. And I suppose You could take that approach to it if you want to. I don't see it that way. Wrestling in and of itself is inherently, it's necessary that the fan is engaged in what's happening. The times of the pandemic kind of showed us that what happens when you have wrestling without a crowd.
Yeah.
It became awkward without that back and forth push between what's happening in the ring and what's happening outside of it. You could tell that there was a strange disconnect. I mean, granted, times we had to do what we had to do so people were safe, people could still be entertained. We particularly in the WWE's case, they had to change the format a little bit, and they were able to survive thanks to the change. But the opinions of an outsider, quote unquote, are important. And sure, I guess you could say it doesn't hold the kind of weight to the opinions of an insider, quote unquote. But that remains to be seen. Like I said, as independent contractors, you are your work, you are your own brand, and if you can build something and it holds weight, then that matters. And anybody who contributes to this forum, anybody who contributes to this medium, to the sport in any way that they can, and showcase what they can do and what they can do for others, it does nothing but build the business and the industry as a whole. The input of podcasters, journalists, goodness gracious, ESPN, and what it's been able to do for wrestling as a whole is felt throughout the entire industry. There's to the point where it's become kind of hyperbole in whether or not certain podcasters, certain broadcasters, certain journalists have an effect on what happens inside of a wrestling ring. So that's another element of storytelling. It's all about storytelling. Wrestling in and of itself is a reflection on American culture. It's not a purely American thing, but we've been able to take this medium and kind of make it our own. It's the story of good and evil. It's the story of triumph over failure. It's the story of grinding and the dream. It's this love, death, pain, sacrifice, joy. There's culture. There's representation. There's anything you can think of. Wrestling is a reflection of that. And at NeoPro specifically, we try and keep our fingers on the pulse of those kinds of things. When you come to a NeoPro show, we want you to just kind of escape reality for a second. The world is a harsh place these days. And particularly when we find ourselves in these tighter, compacted places where we all have to interact with each other for a moment in time. You come to a NeoPro show, we want you to escape. We don't want you to care about what happens outside of that building. We don't want you to care about your job or your family or what you see on television or what you're being told you should be thinking every time you turn your phone on. We want you to escape. For a moment, let us tell you a story instead of you having to live one and just be engrossed. And then when you're done, you go back out into the world. If you want to contribute to the business somehow by having your experience through your eyes be reflected by your voice and what you do to the people that you know and love around you, by all means, go do that. But you make sure you tell them what you went and saw at NeoPro so that you can bring them with you the next time that you want to come to one of the shows.
It is it's something that I always like to do, and I've done it so much in the last month. To me, it's become like it's become like I'm reading a form. It's standard. I have to say this, but in my heart of hearts, I know what I say is true and what I believe. And I believe that people need to hear how much they're appreciated, as I like to call it, getting their flowers. Because a lot of times people never get to hear what they meant to other people until after they're gone. And they can't enjoy it. It's such a sad thing because we choose not to tell people our true feelings because of whatever. I I want to thank you. I want to thank you, your partners, and Neo Pro Wrestling for everything that you're doing for the business to keep it going and thriving. I want to thank you for everything you've done in the past. Being trained to be a wrestler is no easy form, and not everybody could do it. But you did something that I couldn't do, and I appreciate that. I appreciate everything you're going to do in the future. It's one of those things of being very, very thankful that there are people like yourself that really give a damn about this business outside of your own self-interest. And I truly believe that with this interview, people will really be able to tell how much you love the sport of wrestling.
Mhm.
Entertainment is easier than giving your blood, sweat, and tears for the sport that you love. And it's no criticism to anyone that does entertainment, but I just feel like entertainment, you're not going 24/7. You're not giving your body to someone else to trust that you're going to be okay. So that's why I put it that way. But again, after all this said and done, I want to thank you and tell you how much not only your fans, my fans, and myself, but everybody appreciate what you're doing, and hopefully you you all will continue having the success that you want. So thank you so much.
We certainly appreciate the opportunity to come on here during your wrestling promotion appreciation months, and kind of use me as the vehicle to kind of tell everybody about Neo Pro and what it is that we do, who we are. We're certainly trying the best that we can to set a standard in the independent wrestling community. We want to showcase excellent talent from all over the place, not just here in Ohio, but across the Great Lakes region and beyond. We I'm gonna agree with something that you said, but also kind of push back a little bit with the difficulty of leaning into something as sport. It's also difficult to lean into something as entertainment. Pro wrestling is the perfect fusion of those things. When you have an actor, when you have a stage actor or somebody like that that's leaning into a character and they do it well, they become engrossed into that character. That work is very difficult too. Try and memorize a 250-page script. That's hard. So there's a difficulty in that essence as well. But I do understand what you're saying, and I do agree with you. The difference of what we do versus a stage actor, for instance, or a television or film actor is for us. It isn't just acting. There are elements of it, right? We have characters, sure. Like you said, kayfabe is. I don't want to say it's dead. I wouldn't say that, but
It's on
kayfabe is a
life
little.
support.
She old Aunt kayfabe. She's a little different than she used to be, and that's okay. Times change, people change, and ideas change. But ultimately, in wrestling, you have compelling characters, you have great athleticism, and you have wonderful, captivating stories told by expert storytellers that can captivate you and pull you into a world, like I said, that's outside of your own for just a brief second. And at Neo Pro, with what we do, and with our specific brand of it, what we aim to do this Saturday, February 21st at White Noise in Louisville at the Louisville Eagles. We aim to tell those kinds of stories. If I may take a couple quick seconds, let folks know about some of the things that are happening. We have a women's title match going on. We've had to have a change in the card, unfortunately, but those things kind of, they happen. Cards are always subject to change. We have a Great Lakes title match. In fact, all of our championships are going to be defended. Well, actually, I don't want to say all of them. Matthew Taylor has been a little distant with communicating with us on what he wants to do as our new champion. things have been interesting with him. But I would imagine he'll show up for work. I sure hope he does. He's our champion after all. But we aim to tell stories through the medium of wrestling, utilizing the spirit of competition in pursuit of these championships, and having captivating characters tell those stories. And hopefully, with a little bit of luck and a whole lot of hard work, our fan base will grow. And like I said, they'll be able to replicate their experience to their friends, family, and loved ones and bring them along the next time. Let them know what we're doing in Canton and what we aim to do far beyond what we're doing on Saturday. Be sure to check out neoprowrestling.net for any updates. You can always check us out on Facebook, on Instagram, all the socials. And if you ever want to watch any Neo Pro Wrestling events, we have highlights and clips and stuff on YouTube, but our events in long form can be seen on indiewrestling.us. They've been a streaming and broadcasting partner for a very, very long time, pretty much since the start of us starting Neo Pro Wrestling. Want to talk about appreciation. I want to give Sorg and the folks at Sidekick Media a shout out on what they do. Tremendous team there. And that partnership has been an invaluable partnership since we've started that. So big shout out to those folks. Check us out on indiewrestling.us and see if you like what we do.
Well, again, thank you so very much for coming on. And just a personal note, we started off, we were supposed to have this yesterday, and I ran into some personal issues where it couldn't happen. But I have to tell you, you motivated me again. I was getting down. I'm not gonna lie, and with this conversation and interview, it makes me feel good and it makes me remember why I do this. And I want to thank you for giving me my spirit back.
Well, Professor, you're welcome. I'm glad I could help in some way with that. Life sometimes can get a little difficult.
Yes, it can.
And the weight of the world can feel like it's pushing you down on your shoulders. But remember, it's your job to stand back up more times that you've been knocked down.
Exactly.
So get up. You'll be all right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So with that being said, guys, girls, thank you so much for joining me around the campfire once again to have another amazing conversation. Like I generally say, we have so much going on in life that sometimes it's the things that you think are a weight on your shoulder. After talking to other people, you'll find out it's not as bad as you think. And as I always do before I leave a show, I always go with this message. Please, please, please support your local indie promotion. They work hard to put on entertainment for your entertainment, for you to get immersed and not worry about life for a few hours so you can enjoy everything and enjoy where these young men and women are working to try to build themselves up and to just do the things that they love to do, which is pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. So please give your support wherever you can. With that being said, I am Professor Bear. This has been a Bear's Thought, and we will see you around the campfire very, very soon. Y'all take care.